Hello, everyone. It has been a while since I have colored something, and I like coloring. It's, just a time to do something a little mindless or mindful, however you look at it. I'm picking the moon to color today. I'm a Pisces, so this is my card, and all the other Pisces as well. It's not like my personal card, but it's also about reflecting, and I feel like that's a really appropriate thing to do right now. Just taking time to rest and reflect about the year and things we did in the year, things we have yet to do. And yeah, I just wanted to relax and talk about books. So come join me in this moment of relaxation and talking about all the books that I read this year. I'm not going to go like too deep into plot summary just because that would be probably 3 hours long. Nobody wants that. So let's just get into it. So if I have series that I read, I'm probably not going to go over each individual book. I'll just go over the series overall. Goodreads, it says 60, but I DNF'd a book, so it's more like 59. I'm trying to switch over to Storygraph and use that more, but for whatever reason, Goodreads isn't importing to Storygraph, and it's really frustrating. So it's we're not going to talk about it. We're going to be calm. We're going to color. All right, so read. I don't know if I started out the year with this book, but it's the first one that comes up on my list of books I've read. Is Baba Yaga's Assistant. I really loved the artwork, and it's a good story for any age. I read this book 2 years after my grandmother passed, and it made me think of her, and it made me think of all the good memories I have with her. And yeah, if you like witchy things, or you like Halloween, or you like folklore or short stories, I recommend it. The Avatar comic series this year, I only read The Promise and The Search, and because I'm dumb, I read The Search before I read The Promise because that's what I thought the order was, and it didn't really affect this how I saw the story too much. Like they're a little bit separate from each other. I don't think that you should read them out of order, but it's not going to be the worst thing in the world if you do. I think that The Promise especially is really relevant to now and current events that are going on. And like the Avatar, the Last Airbender series, and you haven't read the comics, go do that because it's such a joy to revisit this world and see what these characters are doing. It's fun. The next book is Snapdragon. This is one of my new favorite books. It's so good. I love it so much. I cried while reading it because it was so good. If you like slice of life or magic, like I don't know if you would call it magic realism. If you I don't know, if you just like books about witches and grandmas and LGBT stories, then just read it. It's like a warm hug. I love Snapdragon. It's so great. It's so good. Oh my god, I love it. The next book I read is Almost American Girl. I liked it. It gave me more perspective about the 90s. I was born in 2000, so, I'm not gonna know about that. But I liked it. It is a graphic memoir. If you like memoirs, if you like graphic novels, it's a pretty quick read. A lot of books I read this year were graphic novels because, I'm working and I don't always have time to sit down and digest a whole book. So I read graphic novels. I also just love art, and I think that a graphic novel is a really great way to tell a story, and that's just me. The next book I read is Mooncakes. It's really cozy, it's great. I love it. If you're like me and you like magical worlds that are also kind of slice of life that are LGBT and have a really cozy art style, then you'll like Mooncakes. It's really great. I love it. There's grandmas in the story, and I really miss my grandma. Like I love her so much. I wish I had more time with her. But yeah, I miss my grandma and I like reading stories about grandmas because it makes me think of my grandma and it makes me happy that I had her in my life when I did. So, anyway, on to something less positive. I read Magical Boy Volume 1 and I'm a trans guy. You think this would be my favorite thing in the world. At least I thought it would be. But I gave it 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads just because there were some things that I couldn't get past in the book. This main thing is like I don't think the author had that much control over it. Like I'm not blaming the author for this, but the format of the book is really jarring. This used to be a webtoon comic, so there's a lot of panels that are kind of, I don't know how to describe it. Like it's very, there's a lot of things like stacked on top of each other, sort of collagey. There's a lot of negative space. It's not like a traditional comic layout. And sometimes it's a little hard to look at. And then the other thing that I didn't really like is the main character has a black friend, right? And she's great. We love her. But we know nothing about her. She kind of just exists to help him out. And the thing, I wouldn't be like that mad if we also didn't have other side characters that we know more about than her. You find out a little bit of the backstory and the motivation behind the other two side characters, but she's the only black character and we find out nothing about her. And I thought that they were gonna get into it because there's this scene where she's taking him shopping for gender affirming clothes and he's like, "Where do you get this money?" And she's like, "Don't worry about it." And I'm like, "Oh, maybe she works and she feels like she has to work to get what she wants because like her family is scraping by, or maybe like she's well off and she feels guilty that she has money when like some of her classmates don't. Like maybe that's gonna add a little zest, a little pizzazz, but no, we don't find out anything about her. And maybe we find out more in volume 2. I do plan on reading volume 2, I just haven't gotten around to it. But we'll see in volume 2 how I feel about it later. Living Wicca by good old Scott Cunningham. I liked Living Wicca better than Solitary Practitioner. If you've read Solitary Practitioner but you haven't read Living Wicca, please go read Living Wicca. I think I was describing it to my friend. I was like, feels like Solitary Practitioner feels like here are things. And then Living Wicca is like, oh shit, I forgot to write about those things. I liked Living Wicca a lot better. It was a much more enjoyable experience. I'm not Wiccan, just so everyone's clear. I'm not Wiccan. I used to identify as Wiccan. I was like trying to get into that faith, but there's just some beliefs that I don't stand by. There's some beliefs that I don't jive with, so I'm not a part of Wicca. I don't knock anyone who practices Wicca, but it's not for me. So I feel like I'm a little biased where it's like whenever I read a Wiccan book, I'm not always gonna rate it the highest because there are some things where I'm just like, like, we're not gonna talk about Solitary Practitioner because I didn't read that this year. But there were some things that like I knocked off because I'm like, I think that this belief is a little harmful. But I didn't get that with Living Wicca, at least from what I remember. Alright, the next book is Hood Feminism. And I personally think that everyone should read this book, especially if you live in America, because it opened my eyes to so many things. I was aware of a lot of these issues, but I feel like it just focuses more on like how these issues impact the individual because she talks heavily about her individual experience, and it really opened my eyes to motherhood because I feel like people demonize mothers a lot, especially when it comes to children in public spaces. Like if a child starts having a tantrum or starts crying, people lose their shit like they were this perfect child that never did anything wrong. But children crying is part of developmental behavior and it's appropriate and it's something that they're supposed to do because they don't have the capacity to articulate how they're feeling because they're fucking children. But she has this chapter called Mothering While Marginalized, and I didn't realize, because like I'm not gonna be a mother and I'm not a mother. That's something I will never experience, but it really opened my eyes to how badly mothers are treated, especially black and brown mothers. Like that, that's really fucked up. And I'm laughing because I'm like, well, yeah, obviously, but like I never thought about it because you don't think about it unless it affects your life. And yeah, I just think that everyone should read this. It was recommended to me by my ex coworker from Barnes and Noble. It is her favorite book. Shout out to Anita. I love Anita. I don't think you're watching this. I don't know if you'll ever watch this, but I miss you. I I wish I could see you again. I love Anita. She's great. If you're ever at Barnes and Noble in the Atlanta area and you meet a person named Anita, she is great. I love her. Make her feel appreciated. Anyway, moving on. Did not read, but I listened to the audiobook. I don't know. I feel bad when I say that I read because like it's not technically correct, but I don't think anyone cares. But I listened to There There by Tommy Orange, and it's a slice of life and it's fictional, but it doesn't feel like it. I was like, I had to like keep looking back because I felt like this was sort of a documentation of people's lives, but it's just that well written. All of the characters, there's so many characters. I think there's about 12, but every single character is fully fleshed out. They're amazing, they're great. It's just really great storytelling. I don't know how else to describe it. And normally, because I'm dumb, right? I'm really dumb. Like normally, if there's more than like 5 characters, I can't keep up because I'm fucking stupid. Like Game of Thrones, I don't know what happened and I never will. I watched season 1 because my boyfriend liked it, and I could not tell you what the fuck happened, who those people are. I could not do it. But There was so great and so well written. I think that if you have even like the slightest interest in reading it, you should read it because I just love it. All right. And the sequel is supposed to come out next year, and I'm really fucking excited about that. Oh my god, I'm so excited. If you like the show Res Dogs, I think you'll definitely like this book. And yeah, support indigenous authors. Read indigenous stories. The next, it's not a book, it's a series. I am not going over every single book in this series because I read like 22 volumes of Blue Exorcist and that would be insane. So I'm just going to go over Blue Exorcist as a whole. I binged Blue Exorcist because I was in the grieving process. Someone close to me died this year. It was very hard. A lot of this, I'm not going to lie. This year was a tough year, emotionally, mentally challenging, but it's okay. I have been through it. I am on the other side. I am doing a lot better, and I'm really grateful for that. And I'm really grateful for Blue Exorcist because it helped me through this difficult part of my life. And I was talking with my therapist about it, and she said, does this relate to anything that you're going through right now? And I said, yeah, like the more I read it, the more I realize that it's a story about loss and how you process losing someone or how you process disappointment. And I love this book series or this manga series. Like I fucking love Blue Exorcist so much. If you've watched the anime and you've only watched the anime, I am so sorry, but pick up the manga. Don't even think about the anime. Don't even look at it, because once I got to like volume 22, I watched the anime and I said, "Who is this? What is this? This is not the amazing story. This is not the wonderful time that was had by me on the screen. This just isn't it. This isn't correct, right? I need everyone to read the manga and not watch the show. If you like the show, I'm not saying you shouldn't like the show. It's just the manga, I hate to be the one, but the manga was better. It's just so well written. What if I told you that there were complex female characters? What if I told you that the love interest for the main character, there is a scene where she goes up to him and says, I'm sorry, but I don't really know about love, and I don't think that I'm ready to date. And he says in response, that's okay, but can we still be friends? So great, so nice, so well written. Just the entire, I'm probably gonna make another video just gushing about Blue Exorcist, and I'm gonna move on, so it's not just me talking about Blue Exorcist for the rest of the video. Anyway, Venus in the Blind Spot. Venus in the Blind Spot is my first reading. I'm probably gonna pronounce it wrong, and I'm so sorry, but Juni Ito, I think, is the author's name. If I got that wrong, I'm so sorry. I'm not saying authors' names specifically because I'm bad at pronouncing names, and also I'm forgetful, and also I didn't write them down because I'm like a little dumb. I got sprinkled with a little bit more dumb sauce than I was supposed to, but here we are. This is the first time I read anything of their work, and I liked it. It was good. It's a short story collection, and I feel like that's kind of just the nature of short stories where like not every single one is gonna hit, but some of them were genuinely chilling, and I was like scared in my bed when I went to sleep that night. And there are horror movies that I have watched, and I'm like fine, I'm like we snaw as soon as I hit the pillow. Like it doesn't affect me at all. But this book was like genuinely terrifying in some of its imagery, and it is haunting. So if you want to feel something, I suggest that you read any of their works because it's bone rattling. Something completely tonally different. We have Tea Dragon Society. Tea Dragon Society is, I don't know what came first, the book or the game, but my friend had the game and I wanted to read the book. And it is just like the cutest little picture book about tea dragons and people who care for them, and it's really sweet. If you like Dungeons and Dragons, or you like adventure books, or you like fantasy, like high fantasy, I recommend reading it. If you want a break from the adventure and the high stakes conflict and all of that, if you just want like a place to chill where you can read about people who raise dragons, it's really sweet. It's really nice. Cute little story for all people. Moving on. I read Numb to This, and come here, listen to me. I need everyone to read Numb to This. If best, especially if you live in America, I need everyone to read Numb to This. Numb to This is a graphic novel memoir about a person who survived a school shooting. And if that is a trigger for you, or if that is something that you can't handle right now, I understand. Just go ahead and skip over this part. I'll try to put in a timestamp of when I stop talking about this, but I'm not going to get into like graphic details. I'm just going to talk about what I liked about the book. So if that's not okay for you, I'll try to put a timestamp. If not, just like skip over. The thing that I really liked about this book is that it really it really illustrates performance activism, because this person goes to a March for Our Lives with her two friends who were also victims of the shooting, and she goes there and her friend starts to have a panic attack, and they try to take him to the med tent, but people keep getting in their way, and like people have to block off people so that they have access to the med tent. And then there's, when she's there, she's sitting there, and there is a little girl with her mom, and she starts talking to her and she's like, yeah, like she's really brave. This is her first march, but she just got really overwhelmed. And she's like, yeah, and people kept stepping on me. Sorry, I'm gonna cry because I'm about to get really emotional. Okay, hold on. But she's like, yeah, like people kept stepping on me and like they wouldn't get out of my way. And she's like, but you're just a kid. That's fucking ridiculous. And it just it just shows how like people will insert themselves and they will speak over and they will grab the mic for issues that they don't even have firsthand experience. Like, I'm not saying that you shouldn't support and you shouldn't advocate, but there is a time where you need to not just pass the mic, but let go of the mic and let people speak for their needs and let people speak who are in those communities who have been victims themselves. Because, oh my, like, just reading it, I was like, oh my god, like this is exactly what it's like when people insert themselves in spaces that they don't need to be the spokesperson for. And then there other scene where she goes to SCAD for college. She goes to SCAD and she has this project that she's working on. It's a little meta because I don't know, can you be meta in a memoir? But she the project is a graphic novel. It was originally a comic, but it turns into a graphic novel about her experience. And she's talking with her classmate, and her classmate's like, hey, like I just want you to know that I really appreciate what you're doing. And I think if my memory serves me correct, and it probably won't because my memory is spotty as hell, but I think his sister was also a survivor of a school shooting, and reading her comic made her feel a little bit better. And he was telling her that, and she's like, thank you so much. And then she starts talking to him and she's like, yeah, like I just hate how when it's time for critiques, you know, in our school, like they have time for critiques. When it's time for critiques, no one wants to say anything because like they feel like they can't. They feel like they can't critique something because it's an experience that they're not aware of. It's like, I want my art to be treated like anyone else's art. Like you can say things. You shouldn't be afraid. And then they don't like it because it makes them feel afraid and it makes them feel uncomfortable. And that's how I feel all the time. And I'm like, it's so powerful, and it visualizes and puts in pages and words and art so many experiences, like global grief and global unrest. And it also talks about how scary 2016 was, and I don't feel like a lot of us have processed that or really thought about that because just as vaguely at everything, like shit keeps happening. But 2016 was so scary. I was in high school, but this person was in college at the time, and there's a scene where she goes to her roommate because she hears her crying, and she talks to her and has that conversation. She's like, I'm so scared to wear my hijab. I can't do it anymore even though I want to. My parents are scared for me. They keep telling me like not to say that I'm Islamic, not to say that I'm Muslim, like don't, because they're so worried about me. And it was so scary. It was such a scary time. We didn't know what was going to happen because we didn't think it was going to. And it revealed so many issues in this country that have existed. Like, a lot of white people just didn't open their eyes to it, but it also made people comfortable more so to be open about their intolerance and their bigotry. And it was so wild. And I don't know, it gave me the space to like confront that and think about it and be able to work through that. And yeah, I just really like Numb to This, and I think that people should read it. If anything I've talked about is something that you feel like you wouldn't be able to handle well, or something that you've experienced yourself, then yeah, of course, like take your time with things. You might not want to revisit that. But if you haven't firsthand experienced it, or you want to be a better ally or a better advocate, or you want to be more aware about the issues that are going on, I think that you should read it. All right, next up is We Are Okay, and it is a slice of life YA, and it's also about, it takes place, not takes place, but like it's about a main character and her life after losing her only remaining family member that she was living with. It's her grandpa. And I know I wasn't going to talk about plot, but it was really relevant to me because I read this also during my time of grieving, and it helped me process a lot of my grief. It articulated a lot of the emotions that I was going through. If you like slice of life, if you like LGBT stories, if you liked Aristotle and Dante, which is my favorite book personally, I think that you would really like this. Uh yeah, like the prose is really pretty. It's a really great book. You could probably finish it in a day. I really liked it. I liked I don't know what to say except I liked it. I'm literary genius over here. All right, the next one is Demonwood, and this is the first book that I read in the Gresha universe. I know. Don't attack me, don't come for me. I know. I just haven't gotten around to it. I know I need to read the Raven duology. I forgot what it's called. Um Not Raven. The Three Crows. I think is it 3 or 12. I'll put a picture here. The Crows books. Please no one come for me, okay? I'm sorry. I will get around to it, but it's the person who wrote Shadow and Bone and the Six of Crows. That's what it's called. Six of Crows. The Six of Crows duology. And I will get around to reading those. I just haven't had time. That's why I read the graphic novel. Okay? Alright. Thought that the artwork for Demonwood was visually stunning. Loved it. Great. Beautiful. If they're the person who did the art, I don't know if they have already, but if they did a tarot deck, I would buy that so quickly. Like the artwork is so beautiful. I like the story, but I don't know if it was pacing or what, but it was a short story, but it felt really long. Maybe because it takes place during winter and I just associate winter with long days and long or short days, long nights and like long months. Maybe that's it. I don't know, but that's how I felt. Moving on. Beetle and the Hollow Bones. So I love this book. This book has so much charm. It is one of my favorite books now. If you like Adventure Time, you will love this book. This book is very Adventure Time. It's it's not really high fantasy. It's kind of like realistic magic. Like they still have technology, they still have shopping malls, but you know there's goblins and and that's where I like to live at. I like realistic magic that's kind of, I guess, sort of, I don't know what you would call it, but it's like where technology exists but they still have magic, they still have things, and it's really cool. I think that's one of the things that I didn't really like about Harry Potter. When, yeah, I'm gonna mention Harry Potter. If trigger warning for those who don't want to hear about Harry Potter, just skip ahead. But that's one of the things I didn't really like about Harry Potter as a kid is it's supposed to be like urban magic, but it's a world that's completely separate, and I kind of get that's part of the appeal and the escapism, but having no contact with humans or technology or like anything, it just didn't really make a lot of sense. So when I do see that in a book, I eat that shit up. I love it. I really liked Beetle and the Hollow Bones. I love the story. The grandma was a treat. You all know I love a grandma. And I also really liked the villain. It was really refreshing, especially in a queer story. The villain didn't have like this tragic backstory. They were just completely power driven and power hungry. And like tragic villains are fine, but it's nice and refreshing to see that, to not have that once in a while. I really enjoyed it. It was great. I think that most people would enjoy this book. You should read it. It's good. I hope that like someone slaps that on the blurb. Like, you should read it. It's good. Chaotic the Ghost. So the next book is Seconds. Oh my god. I read so many books that I love this year, and I'm so grateful for that because Seconds was so good. And keep in mind, I get distracted. Not easily, but like I'll get distracted. I'll think of something I need to do and be like, oh, I need to like finish up this chapter and go. No, not with Seconds. Seconds was so good. I sat on the couch, and it was supposed to be like some light reading that I did before bed. I sat on the couch and I read Seconds cover to cover because it was so fucking good. I don't know, Seconds is made by the same person who made Scott Pilgrim, and this person is just such a good author, such a good writer, such a good storyteller. All of the characters in Seconds were grounded in reality. Like I felt like I've known these people. I felt like these people are people who have been in my life before. Like I've met these people. I know who these people are. I know exactly how they're going to act. I know what their motivations are. I know why they do what they do. And it's also really refreshing to have a flawed character who's like a main character who's flawed and not like this quirky little, oh my god, I'm so cute and quirky, but I only have like one flaw. Like it's it's great. I love it. Give me more. I want characters who fuck up. I want characters who make wrong decisions. I want characters who realize how they fuck up and they develop. Like that's all we want. Just give it to us. Oh my god, it's read Seconds. Seconds is so great. If you like also if you like mushrooms or if you like cooking or if you've worked in a restaurant, like read Seconds. It's so fucking great. Book is Educated by Tara Westover, and all I have to say is that it's stunning. Great. I love Educated so much. That book is so profound. It's so well written. It's just a fucking incredible story. Yeah, I love Seconds. Book, well, series, I would say, and I will go over these individually, not in detail, but just because I had different ratings for each one. I read the teen site God, I wish I learned how to speak. I read the Teen Titans series that's like Raven and Beast Boy and all that. I read Raven and I loved Raven. Raven was great. I read Beast Boy. I thought Beast Boy was okay. Mainly because I was invested in the side characters more than I was invested in the main character, who, you know, is Beast Boy. And there were some things that just didn't make sense about the book. Like, one of the main side plots of the book is that his friend volunteers at an animal shelter and she's trying to get these dogs home so that they don't get euthanized because the shelter's running out of space. And my first thought was, wait a minute, why doesn't Beast Boy volunteer at the dog shelter with her? Because he's wearing like, he always wears shirts that are like vegetarian, like pro-vegetarian, pro-vegan. And I'm just like, why don't you volunteer at the animal shelter? That would make so much sense. And then there's a scene, the whole plot of the book, I know I said I wasn't going to end the plot, but the whole plot of the book is that he has this, not the whole plot, but like a main driving force is that he has this bucket list that he wants to do these things before his senior year. One of his things is to kiss this specific girl. And his friends come to him and they're like, you know that she doesn't like you. Like, she just thinks that you're cool now because you're popular. She doesn't actually give a shit about you. And he's like, oh, I know. I just want to kiss her. And I'm like, you know, sometimes characters don't need to be self-aware 100% of the time, because it would have been a more compelling and realistic story if he's like, oh, I want to kiss this girl because I've liked her for so long and I just think she's so great and I think that we'd be really happy together. And his friends pull him aside and they're like, hey, have that little intervention with him, and he's like, oh, you think so? Or like he doesn't believe them, and then he goes on that journey of realizing that. I just think that that would have been more compelling. And like, yeah, I know it's a story that's been told before, but I just feel like that's a little bit better than, oh yeah, I know, but I'm gonna do it anyway. It's like, what? um it is weird because like his friends are art. I don't like playing the Pain Olympics, but like his friends are arguably dealing with issues that are more complex than his, and he's a little oblivious to it. And I'm like, shouldn't you care about your friends the way your friends are caring about you right now? But whatever. His other friend, I forget his name, but he just found out like his senior year of high school that he is dyslexic. And I relate to that because I didn't know that I was dyslexic until I got into high school, and my math teacher pointed it out to me, and I asked my parents about it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we forgot what it is, but yeah, you have something." And I'm like, "Great. That would have been really great to fucking know." But why I didn't like that book as much as Raven, because I just felt it wasn't that strong compared to the story. Compared to Teen Titans Raven, I didn't think it was that strong. Beast Boy Loves Raven. Maybe I'm too fucking old. Maybe I'm just a prude, but 3 days is a little too short for me to figure out if you like someone or not. Even if you're a teenager and you guys are spending 3 days together nonstop and this is the first time you've met, I still think that's a little bit too, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's been a while since I've been a teenager, but that's how I feel personally. I just felt like that was a little bit much. Robin, I liked Robin. I don't remember a lot about Robin, but I am looking forward to the series and the next book. That I think the next book is Starfire, so I'm looking forward to that. I don't know if it's out yet or not, but I'm looking forward to reading it. All right, everything okay. Everything okay. Everything is okay. Is a, I don't know. I guess it'd be a graphic memoir technically. You know how a lot of teachers will buy "Oh, the Places You'll Go" by Dr. Seuss, and they'll give it to their class, to their graduating class as they go from high school to college. I think that Everything is Okay is the adult version of "Oh, the Places You'll Go," because even if you're not going through something, because I read this when I was going through, again, the grieving process. I know you guys are probably tired of hearing that by now, but yeah, I read this while I was grieving, and it just it just made me feel normal. It made me feel okay. It made me feel like everything I experienced was valid, but also knowing that I would be able to get through it. Not even just with what I was experiencing this year, but what I've experienced in the past. And it just gave me the space to process, and it gave me encouragement while I was going through something dark in my life. And yeah, I think that everyone should read it. I think it would be really beneficial to everyone's mental health if everyone read this. All right, moving on is Carrie by Stephen King. Fun fact, I started reading this, and then the person who was close to me who passed away, their name was Carrie. So maybe that has to do with my negative feelings toward this book. But I listened to the audiobook for Carrie, and I thought Carrie was fine. I thought it was okay. The main reason I read this book is because I am a horror fan, but I've never read Stephen King, and I know that that is a sin and an affront to everything that is holy. So I was like, all right, I gotta read at least one Stephen King book this year. So I started with Carrie. And maybe I would have enjoyed it more if I just read it, but listening to it, the person who does the voice for for the audiobook, they also, I think, do the audiobook for Clan of the Cave Bear. I don't know if you guys have heard of those books, but they were my partner's favorite books as a kid, and I tried listening to the audiobook and I kept falling asleep. So maybe that also has something to do with it, but it just felt really repetitive, and maybe I would have enjoyed it more if I hadn't had known what was going to happen. But at this point in society, and absorbing pop culture by osmosis and references, I don't think that there's anyone who doesn't know what happens in this book, and it just, I don't know, like, it's okay. I think that adding the newspaper articles and stuff was interesting and compelling, but yeah, it was just alright. It was fine. Moving on. It Won't Always Be Like This is another graphic memoir, and I liked it because it gave me insight into one person's experience in a culture that I am not familiar with, and I learned. And if there's anything we do to read, it's to learn. And I learned, and it was nice. I thought that it was going to be, from the title, I thought it was going to be about a person who was in a bad situation and told themselves, like, oh, it won't always be like this. But the book kind of flips the title on its head, and saying it won't always be like this is, it's about growing up and learning that not everything is black and white, and learning that your parents are people, and the complexities around family and family dynamics. And yeah, it was enjoyable. um Made me feel something. And then I read Convenience Store Woman. I love Convenience Store Woman. If you've worked in retail or the service industry, I definitely recommend reading it. It's like satirical comedy of capitalism, and it's just it's so great. There were times I were reading it and I was like, "Oop, it's me." But yeah, it's a short story. If you have the time to just sit down and read it, it's pretty great. I like it a lot. I'll probably revisit it later, but yeah, I love Convenience Store Woman, and I really want to read more by the author. The next book is You Will Get Through This Night by Daniel Howell. If you don't know, he's a YouTuber. Maybe you've heard of him. But this book is so great. I feel like that's this whole video is, this book is so great, but I love this book. I would pair it with Everyone is Okay as giving it to every single adult. I think that everyone should read this book. He partnered with I didn't know this when I picked up this book. I just got it because, I like this creator. I've liked this creator for a long time, and I've been meaning to read it, and I felt like now was a good time to read it. But I thought this book was just going to be like any other self-help book. I did not have like the best expectations going into it, and it exceeded. Sword went above and beyond my expectations with a with a psychiatrist who I believe is the head of one of the biggest mental health organizations in the UK. I could be wrong, but it has so many activities and exercises that you can do that will help you process, will help you regulate, will help you deep dive with like what you're going through or what you have gone through. And it's packed full. Like, I put, those little sticky tabs, those little highlight tabs, I put one of those every time there was a exercise or there was a journal activity that you can do, and it is packed full. Just really, it's a really great resource to have. It's backed by neuroscience and the clinical psychology beliefs of the time. And it goes into the evolutionary reasons why we do what we do. And it is really helpful. It's reframed the way that I think about a lot of things, and it helped me unpack a lot. And yeah, I recommend it. I love it. It's great. Um, Astrophysics for People in a Hurry by Neil deGrasse Tyson. I listened to the audiobook for this on Libby, and it's really short. It's only 4 hours long. And I said, oh, I'll just listen to this real quick. Mistake. Bad idea. I forgot that I haven't taken a physics class since I was a junior in high school. And not the neighbors. And I haven't taken a astronomy class since I was a senior in high school, and I forgot that there is a huge knowledge gap and I'm not going to know a lot of shit. So, I'm not really reviewing the book. I'm just not even reviewing. I'm just explaining my experience. Um I think it's really hard for me to process information. I don't know what it's like auditory information. I think that's hard for me to process, especially if it's a complex new idea. It was really hard for me to connect the ideas that he was talking about. There's something called like gaps in my knowledge when it comes to astrophysics, and it's really hard for people who have a level of expertise such as Neil deGrasse Tyson to come back down to the level of beginner. And that's normal, that's fine. But yeah, it was really hard for me to understand this book. I don't regret reading it. I will probably reread it in print form and see if I have a different experience. Um it's one thing this book taught me, it's that there's so much that we don't know, and there's always going to be new things to learn, and that makes life a little bit exciting. But if you have any interest in the subject, or you like Neil deGrasse Tyson, I would recommend listening to the audiobook. It was fine. It was fun. It's fast. It's shorter than most audiobooks. Um the next one is I Would Leave Me If I Could, and this is a poetry collection by Halsey, and I'm going to start out by saying that I am not Rachel Oates. I am not a poetry aficionado. I haven't really read poetry since I was in high school, and this was my first kind of dive back into it because I do want to read more. But I listened to the audiobook of it, and I think hearing her speak and like hearing the rhythm of it was a good introduction to it, because when you read, it's kind of, for me at least, it's a little hard to catch the rhythm of something. But I really enjoyed it, and I feel like on a technical level it doesn't really matter. I feel like poetry, because it's kind of, I don't know, like I know writing and language is an art in itself, but poetry is kind of like just the most artistic form of language. And I feel like if you enjoy it, then it doesn't really matter if it's the best poem ever or not, or if it's technically good. I enjoyed it. I liked it. I like reading it. It was good. I think my favorite collection of poems, because it's I know it's like a full collection of poems, but there are some poems that connect to each other or they're split up into parts. And Another Bad Day, I really liked that one. I think that one was probably my favorite. I also really liked Tornado, and then Fun Girl. I think it's called Fun Girl. I really liked Fun Girl. I think Halsey does have a really good way with words, and I I really like it. And also, the whole reason why I read this book is because I saw a Rachel Oates video and she was praising it, and I heard some of the poems that she talked about, and I was like, oh, that's really good. So I dived into it, and like revisit things that I haven't in a while and to experience something different. Add a little spice to life, because variety is the spice of life. The next book I read is Ghost Music Ghost Music was an interesting read. It reminded me of Seconds a lot. It just had a really interesting premise, and I enjoyed it. It's kind of like slice of life. It's actually really similar to Seconds. Like, it's kind of like slice of life, but it has these like sci-fi fantasy elements to it. It's very dreamlike. Um, but yeah, I enjoyed it. When it got towards the end, I was a little bit confused. It kind of felt like it was gonna keep going, and then it just stopped, which I guess is just how life works. But yeah, I'm probably gonna have to reread it because I started reading it and then there was a huge gap in my reading because something happened and I just had to take a break from everything. But yeah, I really liked Ghost Music. I recommend it. It's a good time. Maybe you should talk to someone is one of the best mental health books that I've read. I think I've read a total of two, but it's one of the best books I've ever read. I would pair it with Everything is Okay and You Will Get Through This Night. Maybe you should talk to someone is so great. If you don't like the format of self-help books, this is the book to read because it is set up like a story. The author used to be a TV writer. So she's really good at writing. She's really good at just stringing all these people together. She's just really good at setting a scene and telling a story. I can't get over it how great it is. I read this as an ebook in Libby and there's so much that I highlighted. I'm probably going to get a physical copy of this book and look over it again because there was so much, and it was, oh my god, like I can't even I don't even think I could like fully express what I got out of this book because it was just so much. Um yeah, I would just go ahead and read it. Like it's fucking great, man. All right. And then the last book is Artie and the Moonwolf. It is a graphic novel. I really liked it. It was really great. I think I read it in one sitting. If you like LGBT books, if you like fantasy, witches, I don't think there's any witches in this book, but if you like vampires and werewolves, I think you should read it. It's pretty great. It's good. I like it. It made me feel something. It also has a sprinkle of the LGBT, the LGBTQ, if you will. But yeah, I think that is all the books that I read this year. I didn't get into any books that I didn't finish or any books that I'm currently reading. These are just the ones that I have finished reading. Let me know if you pick them up. Let me know if this was helpful for you. Um, yeah, I hope you guys have a great rest of the year and just remember to rest and to give yourself time. All right, goodbye.